Howdy, welcome back to Pecan Tree Design. Today I'm making some shelves out of 3/4 inch black iron pipe and some 3/4 inch plywood. I had some parts already, but I'll need some more closed pipes, caps, coupling, but I won't be needing those, some elbows, T's, floor flanges, and 12-inch pipes. Lots of 12-inch pipes. This stuff is quite dirty when it arrives, so I like to clean it off with some acetone. Then I apply a layer of finishing wax to prevent rusting. Be sure to use heavy-duty gloves like these orange ones here when handling acetone, not just those thin blue or clear ones you find in the paints. I use lots of old rags for this, cut-up towels actually. They get into all the nooks and crannies easier. This is what we're going for. Once it's all clean, I put it all together before I apply the wax coating. Everything gets a firm hand tightening, no need to overdo it with the pliers or the vice grips. I do use the thinner blue gloves here, there's no chemicals to worry about. Everything gets put together and waxed. Now, I have the structure for my shelving unit. I'm putting the unit in this corner of my son's room. The stud placement wasn't ideal, but it still works. I wanted at least part of this unit mounted directly to the studs for support. So, half the flange is stud mounted and the other half is just drywall anchors. These scraps of plywood are perfect for the shelves. The pipe support is spaced with 26 inches between each, so a 3/4 inch plywood should be fine with no worry of sagging. Besides, my son wants to just use these for Lego builds, and they don't weigh that much. I just need to cut them all down to 11-inch wide planks. This takes little to no time. I set the fence to 11 inches and just start ripping it all down. Once I have everything cut to width, it's time to get it all cut down to length. 30 inches will do. That gives me about an inch of overhang on each side. I only need 6 of these, and here they are. I could just cut, stain, and seal as is, but I don't want those exposed edges, so I'm going to take this up a notch with some strips of poplar. Lots of them, actually. I'll start by just gluing them to the long sides first, making sure to thoroughly coat both pieces in glue for a complete joint. Then clamps. Lots and lots of clamps. I ran out of clamps and had to do these in sets, so it took me some time. For the adjacent sides, I cut the strips to the exact length of the gap left behind, then glued and clamped again for a complete wraparound. I know, they don't look great, but trust me, it'll all work out. You have to just trust the process. Time to clean things up by trimming off the ends that are hanging over. For this, I'll use a pull saw to get a flush cut. Just hold it flat with the fingers, like here, and zip it right off. With a little practice, you can even just start flying through these with no fingers, just like my old shop teacher. Well, that cleans up the ends. Now for the top and the bottom. These strips are a little thin, so a little sanding will flush them right up. Remember whenever I said to be sure that the glue covers both pieces thoroughly? Well, this is why. As I sand these down, they will go flush with the plywood. So long as the glue bonds both planes completely and tightly, there will be no gaps. Where there are gaps, because this is wood and I'm not perfect, I fill in those cracks with some glue and sand while it's still wet. This fills in those fine gaps with glue and wood mixture. I don't know why, but I always run my fingers over a freshly sanded edge. My hands are still vibrating and I can't feel much of anything. I guess if I don't get splinters, it must be fine. Here's a closer angle from the other side. At the start, you can see the glue stains on the plywood edges and the raised poplar strips. Now watch as the sanding knocks all of this down. This plywood has a thick veneer that allows for harsh sanding like this. Some plywoods have a thinner veneer and won't let you sand it this aggressively. See how it cleans up? Now it looks much better. Don't forget about the ends. You want to make sure you sand the ends too. Now that everything's all sanded up, I'll wipe it down with a damp cloth, then go over it again with a light sanding to knock down any grain that pops up, then clean them off one final time before staining. I went for a dark stain on these. This is called Kona, and it comes from the local big box. Alright, we're in the home stretch now. I'll use this Rust-Oleum matte clear coat to finish these off. I hit the ends and then work my way around, then go over the top one direction, And once I'm done, I turn and cover in the opposite direction. This gives me a complete wet coating over the top, without dripping. Now I just let them dry for a little bit, flip them over, and repeat. Depending on how much I'm doing, I'll use a spray can like this, or a wipe-on poly if I'm doing something much larger. Because one can give me a complete coating on all of the shelves, I opted to do the rattle can option. I used one can, then gave it a light sanding, and then came back with a second can for a second coat. Finally, it's all done. I just lay them across the supports and call it a day. I don't bother attaching them in any way because they don't rock or slide and they don't need to. Be sure to check for links in the description of the tools I used and more info on me if you'd like. Hope you enjoyed and got some inspiration. Now, get out there and make some sawdust of your own.